What's up, baseball world? Welcome along to another edition of Jay's Talk with Jay. It has been an interesting week, and I thought how better to start the week than by getting Sheldon on again. He was so cool last week. Let's try it again. Sheldon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me back on the show, man. It was amazing the first time around, and I'm excited to be here again.
This is take two, people. We did this once already, and I never pushed record. I thought I'd get that in there. You lot might laugh, you might not. Who knows? So what's your thoughts, man? I thought it had been an interesting week. Managed to get a series win over the Yankees, but against KC, it just didn't quite happen. I don't think we were blown away either. What do you think?
I think with the Jays and the Royals, that series highlighted a few things. The offense is still kind of sputtering. The defense wasn't on point. It's I chalk it up as it's early in the season. I mean, only 10% of the season's already done. They're 7-9 with all the injuries and the COVID issues. Be 7-9 after 16 games is, not too bad at the moment.
We've had worse starts, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, we had a 6-17 start, I believe, in 2017 or 2018. I think it was 2017, and the Jays couldn't recover from that. So if you want to look at it in retrospect, we're not too bad. We're doing okay.
I think there's quite a bit to talk about today, mainly due to, I think, fan reaction. Fan reaction yesterday. I know that you were watching on Blue Jays Center, and a lot of the fans, there was a lot of hate towards Simeon. There was a lot of hate towards Charlie. We were chatting on Instagram, and I said, we win one game and it's like it's World Series, baby, and then you lose one or two games and it's like the world's ended. Is that a Toronto thing or is that just a Jays thing?
It can be a Toronto thing if you're here during the Toronto Maple Leafs and when they're playing their season. If they lose two in a row, it's everybody on every single social media and mainstream media is asking what's wrong with the Leafs. I think there's such a high expectation of the Jays this year, especially with the moves that they made, that I think there was an expectation that this team would have came out of the blocks a lot quicker, a lot better. But, again, people have to remember this team is hurt. Gurriel had issues with COVID. Hernandez is still on the COVID restricted list. We've got a ton of pitchers who are injured right now, pitchers who can help us in the bullpen and in the starting rotation. So again, being 2 games under 500 with a 7-9 record, that's nothing to be upset about, nothing to be too concerned about. With Simeon, there was a lot of hype behind Simeon. I think a lot of people were expecting him to be the 2019 version of who he was, where he was a top 3 MVP candidate. But truthfully, if you take a look at his entire career, he has never been that type of player. He's been a good player, but he's usually around, 240, 250 with 15 home runs. He had one season where he had 27, but he's kind of settled into a, 15 to 20 home run guy and with good defense. I think there might have been a little bit of overexcitement with Simeon, and that might have been because, Springer as well. Springer coming on board and kind of, influenced that excitement for Simeon.
Do you think, because I touched on this with you yesterday, do you think that because Springer's not playing and the rest of the team, apart from maybe Grichuk, maybe Danny Jansen, but he's still relatively young, he's not old, do you think that Simeon kind of thought, I need to step up a bit here because I'm kind of the daddy of the team at the moment? And do you think that maybe the pressure's got to him? Whereas if George was in there doing his thing, first of all, he wouldn't be leading off. Less pressure straight away. And with him batting further down the order, knowing that he's got Springer above him, Bo, Vladdy, and we've seen that they can hit already. that maybe it's playing on his mind a bit and he's trying to overcompensate, and that's maybe why he's not getting as many hits as he probably should do. Because at the moment he seems like he's either hitting it out of the park or it's an out.
Yeah, I think there might be some self-induced pressure to start the lineup and to perform in such a way, or to at least hold down the leadoff spot until George Springer comes back. But I think once Springer comes back, I think we'll see a much more consistent Semien. I think we'll see a much better Semien. I don't envision him being in the top 5 of the order. I think spot 6 through 8 is where he would fit in. That also depends on how the other players are doing as well. If they're all performing well, then that's where he's going to be. But if they're struggling, then of course you're going to see him somewhere in the top 5.
Yeah, like if he's batting 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, wherever they decide to put him, there's no pressure there. There's no pressure there for him to perform, and I think that I think we'll see him turn it round, but obviously it's not going to happen at the moment. I don't think leadoff is the spot for him. I think everyone's agreed on that. I think the problem is there's no one else to go. There's no one else to hit leadoff, and you wouldn't want to swap. You wouldn't want to play with Bo and Vladdy hitting second and third at the moment, not with the way they've been playing.
I mean, they could do something extreme where if you take a look at Bo's career numbers in leadoff spot, they're very, very good. I think his OPS is over 820 batting out of the leadoff spot. If you put Bo leadoff and Vladdy second, and then everybody else after them for the short time, that could work. I wouldn't do it for the full season, but for a short period of time until Springer comes back, then you can kind of drop everybody back down to the 2 and 3 spot. That could be something they could do. But again, it's a bit of an extreme move, because do you really want to move those 2 kids where they're comfortable right now into different spots?
It's interesting. Like I think I read today that they're saying that George is near enough ready to come back, right? So they said not the Boston series, but after that.
Yeah, I think the rumor is, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be the Atlanta series, the 23rd of this week. They're kind of thinking about it, but in all honesty, there was also another rumor flying around that the Atlanta series, which starts on April 30th, is when we'll see George Springer's debut. Which, again, if the Jays can, get past these next 7 games, and they can come out with a 4 and 3 record, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad plan. With the way things are going, and especially the fact that you've invested so much in George Springer, I think being cautious is probably the best course of action, because you want George Springer healthy all the way to hopefully the playoffs and through the playoffs. You don't want him to get hurt in July or August with a recurring injury. So I think patience is kind of key here. And it kind of makes you wonder just how severe the injuries were with his oblique and his hamstring. They could have been far more severe than they were letting on.
Yeah, it does. I think it seems that way. But I'm just hoping that it was something that did happen in spring training, and it wasn't something that was carried over and was missed in the medical, because that would be kind of stupid, right?
It's happened.
Yeah,
it's happened.
Okay, so we spoke last Sunday, so it's about a week. What's happened this week? We played the Yankees. I mentioned that. Another series win. Everything seemed rosy. We were going to the World Series. Everything was playing out fine. One thing I took from the series against KC, I didn't think the pitching was actually that bad. Considering who pitched and what we were left with, I actually thought, I actually thought that they done okay. All right, way too many walks, and that hurt us big time. Truth be told, we should have probably lost yesterday's game by a hell of a lot more than we actually did. But the other game, like the games were still close. And you said that you were impressed with their recruiting this off season. So are Casey ahead of us in terms of that, or were they just lucky to catch us with so many injuries?
I think AC got certain players to help them, especially with their young players. Carlos Santana to help in that lineup, a bit of a patient hitter. Right now he's kind of scuffling, but overall he's someone in that lineup you don't want to, run into when they're when he's really going well. Salvador Perez, incredibly strong defensively. They have players that can perform very well. So I think this series showed that when the Jays are not right, a team like Kansas City, who is going to be competitive, but I wouldn't put them as a threat to the World Series unless they get incredibly lucky. But a competitive team can take out the Jays if the Jays are not doing things correctly.
Didn't we say that about Tampa Bay last year though? They can't do very well, and
there's a bit of a Tampa Bay element with the Royals in terms of, they have one player in Hanser Alberto who they played him at shortstop, and he hasn't played shortstop in I don't know how many years, and he performed decently. So they got players in there, veteran players that can help them out. They have some talented young players. And I think this series showed that if the Jays are struggling, when they run up against a competitive team like KC,
they'll take advantage.
Yeah, this result. They're just not going to be able. I mean, they didn't get blown out of the water. They only lost, 2 runs in Thursday's game. They lost by 2 runs on yesterday's game. So they and then I think they lost by 1 run on game 2. They weren't outplayed. They just didn't hit when they had the opportunity to hit.
Yeah, agreed. I thought the bats were cold, considering what we had seen previously. Obviously, Bo, I don't think he's had a hit in 3 games now. Is it 3 games?
Yeah, I think 0 for 11. I think that was the last time I checked. He's 0 for 11.
And then obviously Vladdy had 2 home runs. They're still there, but I think that if one or both of them aren't firing, it makes it very obvious that the team can't hit particularly well. At times, it's not always like that, but it looks that way, and it looks like that if they don't spark it, nobody else is really kind of. Although Rowdy's played okay, and he's got a few more hits, he's not on a .0 average anymore. So
at one point, once Rowdy got that first hit, he started to become Rowdy Tellez again. At one point, he was like 8 for 19. So when he gets hot, he gets hot. And coincidentally, we're seeing Randall get a little bit cold now. And we've talked about it that Randall is a streaky hitter. So we're starting to see a bit of a cold spell with Randy Gritchick. But right now, they really miss Teoscar Hernandez. And
he should be back. He should be back though, right?
He should be back soon. They say that he's up to full strength. It's just a matter of just following the COVID policies. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back by the Tampa series. They'll bring him back by Tampa.
So you don't think he'll play against Boston?
It would be a stretch. I mean, I could see him play on Wednesday, and then they have the off day on Thursday, and then he'll be, good for Tampa. That could happen.
I am predicting we play 2 games against Boston, and we sweep them. You heard it here first. I have not been drinking. Although the sun has got to my head a little bit because it's been very warm here today. I don't know. There's something that like very reminiscent of the opening series against the Yankees. Playing the Red Sox, they've had a good start. Although they had a terrible start, they've turned it into a good start. Something says to me that the likes of Vladdy and the likes of Bo, maybe Cavan's got something to prove as well, and I think he should be back. I think these guys, they might just put a show on for us. Something's telling me that it could be Obviously, we don't know who's pitch. We don't know who's going to pitch on Wednesday, so that might change my opinion. But I've got a feeling Tuesday for me is a no-brainer. If Ryu pitches as well as he has been, and the guys can find some fire in the bats, I think we'll win definitely on Tuesday. I think we'll win Wednesday as well.
I'm going to say we get out with a split. I think they're going to win game one. Game one. Game two, it'll be close. I don't think it'll be a blowout for Boston, but it'll really depend on what that lineup looks like. Lourdes Gurriel is starting to show signs of kind of breaking out. Rowdy is starting to hit well. I think right now, Teoscar is the key component in that lineup. He's the one that seems, I mean, when he's going well, he is literally the, Vladdy's protection in that lineup.
Yeah, agreed.
And right now, that's what they're missing. They don't have that big bat in the lineup.
You can carry on, but just quickly, do you think that Joe Panic should be playing at the moment, as it stands at the moment, with how things have been and what we've seen? Personally, I think I'd put him in the lineup.
I think with Gavin being hurt, and I would go with a platoon of Panic and Espinal at third.
He's been great, Espinal. Was good again the other day when he came in.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, I think he's probably their best defender in the infield. He does a lot of the smaller things, the little things that kind of go unnoticed. And same with Joe Panic. I think Joe Panic has great at bats. He kind of reminds me of what he was in San Francisco, where he was kind of one of those guys that, did so many little things that kind of goes under radar. But when you look at the box score and you see what he's contributed to that team that day, it's huge. And he's got a little bit of veteran leadership. I mean, the Jays, if they really feel that Simeon is not the guy at leadoff, then if Joe Panic is playing third while Cavan is recuperating from his injury, put Joe Panic in the leadoff spot.
I agree. I think so. That's why I asked. Really, I've seen him play enough now to think he's probably going to get more hits than Simeon.
I think if you play matchup, Panic versus righties, Espinal versus lefties, I think you might have a better chance right now than having Simeon at the leadoff spot and, kind of hoping he hits a home run or something. But if you take a look at his numbers, it's kind of shaky right now. I mean, he's not a leadoff guy.
What's with the online hate towards Charlie at the moment? I don't see that he's done too much wrong. Is that just people sounding off because they're annoyed that they've lost, or is it a genuine hate?
I think there's a little bit of frustration. I think with the Steven Matz start, the fact that he took Steven Matz out a doubleheader, I would have just left him in, let him do the full 7 innings. It's not, doubleheaders are not 9 innings.
Even if he gave up a couple of runs, yeah. I think that's the only thing that's really stood out to me. I don't think there's anything else that I could turn around and say, that's a bad move.
I think game 2, where he kind of went through about 5 pitchers, might have been a little too much. I think I would have just gone with, whoever's pitching, go 2 or 3, another pitcher, go 2 or 3, and then have someone finish off the game. But the game was close, so he was probably trying to do everything he can to either.
They walked it off, right? So he's trying to win the game. For me, that's not a negative.
I think it kind of left him with on the Sunday's game with very limited options in that game. Sometimes there was an old manager back in the 70s and 80s, and he once said sometimes you got to lose one to win the next one. And you just think about trying to save your pitching staff and the amount of pitchers you have in your arms, and how much you have for the next game. And I think that might have been a case where, I would have thrown Tanner Roark out there game 2. Let him pitch 4 innings. Let him pitch 5 innings. And if he takes a beating in those 5 innings...
Because we had won the first game, yeah. So kind of save everyone else and let's go for it. Let's go for it on the closing day on Sunday. Yeah, I get it. I get it. So you think that it's more just frustration at the moment? It's nothing really directed towards it, because Gibby used to get it a lot. Gibby got a lot of flack, and I thought he'd done all right. I think he did okay, Gibby.
Gibby did well. I mean, Gibby knew how to manage that bullpen, and he had a pretty good sense of his players. And I think Charlie's the same way. I think Charlie's got a pretty good sense of his players and who's doing well. I actually said something on Facebook prior to the season. If Charlie doesn't have a good record this year, if he doesn't win 85 plus games, there's a possibility that the Jays organization may go in a different direction, because Charlie's worked with the young players, and maybe it's time to bring in, and I'm not saying they're going to do it, and I'm not saying that I'm critical of Charlie, but there comes to a point where maybe a different voice has to come in.
What you're thinking, someone that can control the bigger voices in the team, maybe?
Yeah, I think someone who can offer a bit of a more direct approach. I mean, we see Charlie on the bench, and Charlie's very jovial, and he's very, very close to his players. But sometimes that could play a bit of a loose clubhouse.
Yeah, that's something that I saw in the comments on Blue Jay Center yesterday. They were saying that he doesn't stand up for his team, and he doesn't. I'm guessing that they're expecting him to get up and get thrown out every now and then. Is that really his style?
No, I mean, from what we've seen, he's not like John Gibbons, who would jump up there and run and yell and scream at an umpire and get in the umpire's face and then get thrown out, or just get thrown out in other games for something that you try to figure out what's he arguing about, but he just does it anyway. Sometimes he knows how to light his team up.
Yeah.
Even the great Cito Gaston was like, sometimes would just hop out there and argue, and then you kind of look and say, okay, maybe the argument's over with, and all of a sudden he says something and he gets thrown out. That's not Charlie's style. I think Charlie's more of, it would have to take a lot for Montoya to get thrown out of the game.
Okay, quick fire. They sacked Charlie. Who'd you bring in?
That's a good question. The way the organization is designed, they kind of really lean on statistical analysis. And if someone like Kevin Cash was available, I would look at Kevin Cash. If not, Terry Francona might be, but you're kind of going in the same direction with, these managers are more statistically driven. It would have to be someone who's got their finger on the pulse of the game of that day. Like, every game is a little bit different, and they might be able to see what's going to happen, or they have an idea of what's going to happen. Still going on a spreadsheet. If someone's pitching well, write them out, instead of going, okay, well, he's throwing 90 pitches, I'm going to take him out and bring someone else in. Yeah. So you have to go in a bit of a different direction. If someone says Cito Gaston, it's not going to be Cito. Cito has now ridden off into the sunset. He's not coming back to save the Blue Jays again. Could it be John Gibbons? He's a guy.
Really?
I'm just throwing a name out there, man. If Gibby was available and someone said, "Hey, would Gibby be coming back?" and I'll be like, "Hey, you can't really say no to the idea."
But hang on. They decided to not roll with Gibby because they wanted to try this Charlie thing, yeah. So now you're saying that they would contemplate? I can't see that, surely.
Well, remember, Gibby came back twice. Gibby's already came back. Gibby was a JP Ricciardi guy, and then Anthopoulos had an opportunity. They brought him back. So, I mean, it's going to have to be someone different than Charlie Montoya. Now, could it be Gibby? I think Gibby's pushing close to 65, 70. So it may not be him. I might be wrong. Gibby might be younger than that. And would he want to come back? That's another question. It would have to be someone a little bit different. But as of right now, I think people criticizing Charlie, it's more out of frustration. People talk about, well, he was in the Manager of the Year voting. I don't put too much stock in the voting, the off-season votes and all those things. He did well with what he had last year. I mean, he's still got a young team. So is there something where maybe once George Springer comes back, uh, will that kind of change the clubhouse dynamic a little bit? Not, I mean, it could be anything. It could be something simple as that too. Here's someone who has won a World Series, who is someone who knows what it takes to win a World Series. And once he steps into that clubhouse and once he's on the field, maybe we'll see a change in the team. Maybe it'll be a little bit different. Um, but in terms of, the Charlie hate, I think it's a little too much.
Bit too soon.
Yeah, I think, we got to give him the full season, man. Give him an opportunity.
16 games into the season. Panic stations.
This is not where Jimmy Williams had a 12-24 record. They threw him out and they brought in Cito Gas. This is not going to be one of those scenarios. Or, Gibby was 20 and it was like 36 and 37 or something, whatever his record was, and they got rid of him and they brought in Cito. I think with Charlie Montoya, you have to give him the opportunity to have the full team. Let's see what he does with Springer. Let's see what he does with Simeon. Let's see what he does with
a pitching rotation.
Yeah, let him have his pitchers. Let him have the arms that he needs and how he wants to use them. And then, give him the season. Give him the full season and see what he does. If this team implodes and they finish with 67 wins or something, and maybe you start thinking about, okay, well, maybe it was Charlie. We need to go in a different direction. But if this team wins 85 games, what more can you ask for? 85 games might be enough to get into the playoffs.
Well, yeah. If you look at results so far, Yankees, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, us. No one's really, like, obviously Boston are up there, but we're thinking wild card. So yeah, I would agree. I want to move on. I want to move on from this because something started to bug me over the weekend, and I want your take on this. The strike zone and its ability to move near enough pitch by pitch. Is this causing us a problem? Because I can think of 2 occasions over the weekend that it totally threw our hitters to the point where they actually swung for pitches they never would have if they were actually called what they were. I sound like I'm talking riddles, right? But
no, you're exactly right. I think there was one on Vladdy.
Yeah, and the one on Rowdy.
Yeah, the one on Rowdy. That's what I was thinking about.
They're the 2 that come to mind. But it's not just. I think if we go back to the first game, and I think if we go through every game, this seems to be an ongoing thing now. Now, I'm not talking we bring in the robots. I'm not saying that we use lasers, or I don't know what the answer is, but surely there needs to be some kind of I don't even know the word I'm looking for. Some kind of rules into regards to how these umpires can call the strike zone, because it's getting a little bit silly now. Like, there's been pitches way outside. High and low, I can kind of understand why they would see that, depending on the angle that they're looking at, that kind of thing. But we're seeing stuff really wide being called strikes, or in the zone and being called balls. And it's not just against us, it's against all the teams have had it.
I think right now it's something that Major League Baseball, the commissioner, Players Association, even the umpires themselves have to actually sit down and take a look at it and say, hey, it's taking a bit from the game where something that's a ball will end up being a strike 2 pitches later. If I think Pat Talbot had said it, might be wrong if it wasn't Pat, but call the strike zone the way it is in the rule book. If you call the strike zone the way it is in the rule book, nobody would have questions. I mean, if it's a close pitch, yes, you'll have the odd question on it. But if you call the strike zone the way it is in the rule book, the game will go faster. And there would be less arguments. People will know that the strike zone is this is what it is. This is your dimensions of the strike zone. We're not going to change it. So go with it. But the fact that you see a lot of umpires kind of moving with the catcher, or they're doing certain things, it kind of takes away from the game when the umpires are the topic of the conversation. And you know when you have a good umpire when they're not even mentioned in anything.
Yeah.
That's when you have a home plate umpire or a good umpire on the bases when they're not the topic of conversation.
Yeah, we don't need none of this karate nonsense like the other day. Like,
I mean, if you want to do showmanship, that's kind of cute. It's fine. But
yeah, but it's not WWE. It's not wrestling, right? Like, leave.
make sure you call the strike zone the way it is in rule books, and I think everyone will appreciate that. And then you can do your kung fu dynamics when you're calling a strike or whatever. That's fine because everybody will say this guy is calling the strike zone the way it is, right? So, to me, when I saw his little mannerisms, the first thing I thought of was Leslie Nielsen and Naked Gun. That was the first thing that popped in my head when I saw that.
Most of the viewers aren't going to know what that is. You do realize that.
Leslie Nielsen, The Naked Gun. Watch it. There is a baseball scene in there. Reggie Jackson's in there. You when you see it, you'll be like, "Oops." But if you get a chance to catch it, catch it.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's always been kind of bad, right? Like, but you kind of let it slide. But for me, it's been more noticeable this season, and it's even the umpires, their positioning now. I don't know if that's because the catchers are now wearing so much stuff, and maybe their helmets are bigger, and they have to stand in a different. But none of them stand in the same position. So if imagine me and you are standing behind the plate together, we're going to see that from two different angles. You might think it's a strike, I might think it's a ball, and that's where the problems are starting. I'm not saying we nail them to the floor. Some of them could do with being nailed somewhere, but there has to be X marks the spot. You have to stand here. At least then they're all standing in the same place. But again, some of them are tall, some of them are short. We won't start saying fat, thin, because then they'll think we're picking on them. But that's not what we're trying to do here. But again, if they're taller and they're crouching down, there must be something. Like I'm probably wrong, but I always thought it was like knee to hip.
It's usually like where the lettering is on your jersey to just to the top of your knee.
Right.
Ideally, that's where it is, or would be where it is. But of course, with changes over time, it'll probably change as well. But what I would like to see, if this is going to become an ongoing situation where I'm not sure if it's in the rule book, I'm not sure if they can do it, but if you're going to argue a ball and strike, then you should go to instant replay, but only do it once. I mean, you can't do it every single call, but if you think it's a pivotal point in the game, like the at bat with Vladdy and Rowdy, if you think that's a pivotal point in the game, you should be allowed to question that call.
Sorry. Go on. I'm guessing technology isn't the way forward here.
I think the fact that they have to call New York for every replay, whereas they should have the technology at the ballpark.
But you can't tell me that they can't do a fake square, and if it goes through it, it goes green. If it doesn't, it's red. Like they use it in tennis. They use it in cricket. That other ball game. Obviously, football, soccer. They've started to use it. I've got to be honest. It's not. I think the people that are controlling it are the problem, not the technology. And we would have the same problem here, right? It would be a case of who's the person that's saying that this is working right. And if it's umpires, they're going to probably get it wrong.
I think you have 4 umpires there. You could have a 5th umpire watching the game at the park. And if they feel that, there's a question about a ball and a strike and a manager wants to...
They should be earpieced up now anyway, right?
They could do that too. I mean, there's a lot of things that they could do with the game, especially when it comes to the umpiring, to make sure that the calls are correct. But over over a course of a game, if there's 250 pitches, and three of them are in question. Is it really worth the time and the technology and the effort to question three pitches? That's what they could be looking at. I mean, unfortunately, we're not in MLB offices, so we don't know what they're talking about. Maybe it's something that they're looking into as we speak. Is it something that they're going to try and experiment with later on? But it's one of those things where, again, the fact that we're talking about we shouldn't be talking about it.
No, agreed. I agreed, but it's bugged me. So tell me how accurate is. I know that Sportsnet use Pitch Tracker or whatever it's called. How accurate is that?
Oh, it's fairly accurate. I mean, you can see where the ball, crosses the plane, crosses the strike zone, and probably four, maybe five pitches a game, you would question, okay, that wasn't really a strike, but it was close enough so that maybe the umpire called it a strike, or it's all, even though it looks like a strike.
So why aren't they using that kind of technology?
Love for them to use it. I would honestly love for them to use it. But then it goes back to the question of the game is fairly long as it is. Do you want to stop the game periodically?
But you don't need to. It's instantaneous on the TV. It brings it up where it's gone. Surely, look, if they want to employ me to watch the Jays games and tell them whether it's gone in that little rectangle or not, I just radio down and go strike.
They could do that, but then again, they would go back to the fact that, well, you're going to have an umpire overriding another umpire, especially the home plate umpire.
But then maybe he shouldn't get it wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh. I don't know. But to me, I think that the technology is there, and they're scared to use it.
I think the technology, they're trying to incorporate. This is what I feel. I think they're trying to incorporate technology. They don't want to take away from the overall essence of the game. The game's always had the human element to it, and instant replay has taken a little bit away from it, but it hasn't really slowed. It hasn't quickened the game at all. It's actually slowed the game down when you have the instant replay. Find that balance of how do we get the game to go a little bit quicker, but incorporate all the technology that is available to the sport. And it goes back to something. It could be something simple, as I mentioned, call the strike zone the way it is in the rule book. If you do that, I think you'll see the game cut down by 30 minutes, because both pitchers know this is the strike zone. I'm going to hit it, and I expect it to be a strike, or I expect it to be a ball. And if you do that, I think you'll see the game quicken a little bit, and then that's when you can kind of incorporate whatever technology you want. But the key is, the rules are there. It's not really being followed to precisely.
I'll be honest. I think that some of the umpires are more interested about how they're going to actually call the strikeout than they are about calling the game. If they put as much effort into actually looking, and I'm sure that they are, but if they put as much effort into their karate chops and their kung fu kicks, into actually watching if these balls or strikes, we would actually get a more accurate game. I think some of it's a little bit ego.
Yeah, I think there are probably some umpires out there who think the game revolves around them and they control the game, which is, you kind of know who they are based on their track record. There was an umpire about 10 or 12 years ago, maybe a little bit further back, and it was his last game before he goes into retirement, and he told both managers, that he was going to call the strike zone the way it is in the rule book. And that game only took 1 hour and 48 minutes, the entire game. So if you call the strike zone the way it is in the rule book, there's a pretty good chance the game will be quick.
Interesting.
So it's one of those things where they've got some work to do. Um, Overall, the umpires are not bad people. They're not, everyone makes a mistake. I get that. But sometimes, and again, with the way technology is, the way social media is, the way mainstream media is, um, there's a lot of scrutiny and criticism against the umpires. So there's got to be something done. Um, by the rule book, by the strike zone in the rule book, all that. See what happens. If it doesn't work, then go to Plan B. Go to Plan C. Whatever you have, whatever continued plans Major League Baseball come up with. But again, the fact that you and I are talking about the umpiring, and everybody else is talking about the umpiring, it should never be the focal point of the series or a game. But it's getting to that point where something needs to be done.
Yeah, we'll probably move on from this because you're right. Too much focus on something else. Let's talk about something else negative. Okay, so we've kind of talked about what happened last week. Yankees series win. We won't talk about the Yankees because let's face it, they're one of the worst teams in the league at the moment. So there's no point dwelling on that. We've beat them twice. Now we know why. Different story against KC, although we've touched on the fact that it was close. There was no blowouts. Obviously, the first game looked like it could have been a blowout, but they came back and they were unlucky. Obviously, one of them calls that we were just talking about. But Boston coming up, then the Rays. It's a big week, right? This week's a big week.
If they can finish 4-3, I would be around there. I'm just gonna double check their schedule. Based on the schedule, if they can split Boston and take 2 or 3 from Tampa, and basically finish 3-5 between those, 3-2.
You started talking. I was rumbled with my drink in my hand. Thanks for that.
If they could take 3 of the 5 games with Boston and Tampa, I would consider that a success.
3 out. What's that? Win 3 and 5. Take 3 out of the 5.
Yeah.
It's a big ask though, right?
Yeah, it is because Tampa's gonna, Tampa's got their system and they're gonna play a certain way, and they've historically been very, very tough on the Jays. But I think, I have a feeling that the Tampa series, the hitters will slowly come around.
Do we only get Ryu once out of them 5 games? Yeah, he's only going to pitch. He's only going to pitch tomorrow, right? That's it.
I think he's pitching the 20th, and if everything goes possibly according to plan, he might pitch the 25th, unless they plan on sitting him down and then having a pitch on the 27th against Washington.
He's had 6 days rest.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it'd be 6 days rest. I think that might be. I mean, they could do it. I would pitch him on the 25th and then have him pitch on the 30th.
I think that my point is, what I'm leading to is because it's Boston and because it's Tampa Bay, division rivals. Boston already pulling away a little bit. Tampa Bay I think they have the same record as us, right?
Tampa's 8-8.
That's right. But it's very similar. What we don't want to do is have to be playing catch up to 2 teams. So I think somewhere along the line, personally, I'd be looking at pitching Ryu tomorrow and Sunday.
That's what I'm thinking. I think it's going to be definitely Ryu tomorrow. They'll have a bullpen game on Wednesday.
It's going to be a mess. I think Wednesday's going to be a mess, but it could be a mess from both sides. So who knows?
Then you have the off day on Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday. I think it's going to be Max and Robbie Ray.
Steven Matz, how good has he been? Like we talked about this before, but he was even better the other day.
I think he's definitely surprised me. I mean, I know he's pitched well in New York for a few years, and I know last year was kind of difficult for him. But what he's doing right now is just, I think it's exceeded everyone's expectations. I don't think anyone expected him to pitch as well as he's been pitching.
But he's pitching better than Ryu.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's been very very good. And Robbie Ray, I know he struggled in his last start, but
Yesterday.
yeah, and it was kind of it was like Houdini. He was getting
Yeah,
in trouble and getting himself out of trouble.
for the amount of walks that he gave up, I couldn't believe he didn't give up a run.
He somehow did it. I would. He gives us a third option now. Granted, I think that type of a start is probably the worst we will see from him, Robbie Ray, where he's completely wild.
Didn't look comfortable. Didn't look comfortable at all.
He didn't. Yeah, but I think he with Pete Walker being the pitching coach, helping them around. My only concern is they need to get a right-handed starter in there at some point, whether it be Nate Pearson, whether
Hatch. No.
Hatch. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Thomas Hatch. I think he's a very, very good starter. I think that number 2 type stuff, but that's me. That could be me being totally optimistic.
They're saying that he's behind Pearson in regards to recovery. But then I heard someone say yesterday that Pearson, there's no guarantee that he'll be starting. So I don't know what the thoughts are there.
I think it's going to get to the point where they're going to have to figure out what to do. I mean, do you really want to go into a short series with 3 lefties, or do you want to try and break them up with a righty? And is that righty going to be TJ Zoik? Is that somebody you want to go with? Could it be Trent Thornton? He had started before.
I'd keep him in. I'd keep him in the pen. Trent. I don't know if I want him starting at the moment. Only because we don't know what we're getting from our starters. Apart from Ryu and Matt, everyone else is kind of hit and miss. And if you need someone to come in the middle of the second inning, you want them to go to 4, 5, possibly the 6th inning, right? And I think that Thornton's probably one of the only guys that's going to be able to do that.
I think it could be a case where they're short on starters, and I think you may see more. I mean, I don't like the idea of bullpen days, but you may see a few more
early in the season.
No, but I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see a few more, and this is where it's going to. And I think this is part of the frustration with Charlie, because they're saying, well, we're going to have another bullpen day, or we're going to have another bullpen day. But Charlie really doesn't have the starters right now. He has 2.5.
But are these people, are they being unrealistic in thinking that an Alex Manoah's getting called up? Is that what these people are asking for? What they're hoping for, or they want the front office to go and spend loads of money, and then all of our pitchers are healthy and we're stuck with too many?
I mean, what Alex Manoah did in spring training was really, really impressive. You also got to remember, he doesn't have a lot of innings in the minor leagues. He doesn't have a lot. So to expect him to come in and be, a positive contributor to the starting staff, it might be too much for him. I mean, let these young pitchers kind of grow a little bit, let them get some seasoning in. Is there someone out there they can probably get? Possibly.
Go on, say the name that everyone's been saying. Go on, I dare you.
I say Luis Castillo, but he ain't coming. Shane Green?
Yeah, like I saw loads of people yesterday saying, "Go out, sign Shane Green. Go and sign." There must be a reason why they haven't bothered.
That's it. I'm surprised that someone like Shane Green is still out there. The fact that he hasn't been signed, to me, gives me the indication that there's something more to the story than
there has to be.
Who else and what else can you get out there? And if too early in the season to make a trade, I mean, so there's nothing you can really get in terms of trade unless someone's desperate that they just don't want someone. And I can't see any team doing that. It's one of those things where, it kind of goes back to the question of, should they have taken the 18 million and signed a pitcher instead of signing Simeon?
Yeah, but then we'd still be a player missing on the field at the moment. So,
Well, they could have used. Well, in that case, you could add Kevin Biggio at second, and then you could have.
but he's injured. Just saying. Just saying, he's injured. Springer's injured. Teoscar's out. There's too many variables here. I think that if you start playing fantasy baseball,
Which everybody does.
yeah, we end up with Roberto Alomar playing second base and all sorts of nonsense. We have Joe Carter's playing the outfield because that's what we remember as old Blue Jays fans. But we can't. I don't think we can go down that road. There's no point. Trying to speculate who we should go for. I think we're at a point now. I think we need a starting pitcher, but we're not going to get one. So we have to deal with what we have at the minute. And moving forward, when it gets to June and things start to play out a little bit, if we're in there, I still think the front office will make a move.
I think right now, if you take a look at how the standings are right now, is Colorado a team you want to target in June or July for one of their starters, whether it be John Gray or German Marquez? It could be one of those two guys. But June is so far away. A team can go on a hot streak. They can win 10 out of 11, and that puts them into wild card contention. I think for now, I think everyone's going to have to kind of look at it and say it's going to be Hyun-Jin Ryu, it's going to be Steven Matz, it's going to be Robbie Ray, and chances are you're going to have either TJ Zoik starting or Anthony Kay starting the other two starts of the 5-man rotation.
I'll be honest with you. I think TJ Zoik's issue is confidence more than anything, because he pitched much better in spring training.
I was surprised that they called him out of the bullpen. I honestly thought that he would be a number 4 starter and just kind of ride him out. It's there's a part of me that feels, and this is going back to the offseason, I would have gone hard for Taijuan Walker, and I would have gone hard for Marwin Gonzalez, the bench piece. And I'm not saying I don't like Simeon. I like Marcus. But was he really someone that we wanted at that time?
Yeah, but if he had hit 10 home runs from the beginning of the season till now, I guess...
I think there will be no questions about his offense at the leadoff spot. There wouldn't be anything. The Jays might be 9-7 instead of 7-9. I think we'll all be excited.
I think that's the problem. It's a small things that are now making it look like it's actually worse than what it probably is. Like I think we're agreed that the pitching staff is to its bones, so to speak. There's not, like, if anyone else goes down, like, realistically, who else is coming up?
If there's anything else that happens to this pitching staff and the front office decides that they're not going to go out and get someone, then I can conceivably see Fabian Woods Richardson or Alex Manoah coming in for a spot start, help them through.
I don't see them spending 150 million on Springer, 18 on Simeon to not go and throw money at a pitcher if the right deal comes up. Yeah, if someone is available, like when David Price was available when we got him, they knew that they had to go. Obviously, it's different front office, but they knew they had to go out and get a pitcher. They knew who was available, and they went and put out all the stops to do so. I think that we're in a better position now because we've probably got more bargaining chips. I just don't see them not doing it. I think that the front, like I said, I'll back the front office at the moment. A lot of people probably don't like them, but I back the front office to go and do the right thing here. If we're in with a shout and we are in with a chance to make the playoffs or at least get one of the wild card spots, they will go and get one of the pitchers that we think that we need, whoever that is.
I tend to agree with you. you had asked me last year or the year before what I thought about the front office, I would have a different opinion on.
Agreed.
But they've built up the farm system. They have a lot of prospects. They have a lot of capital to use to get a starter. Um, the question is, are they willing to part with that many to get someone to help them? And I think if they're going to get a starting pitcher, it won't be a rental. It'll be someone who is going to be around for the following season or the season after.
Yeah, agreed. So they can work. So that they can work on him, try and get him to extend. Bloody, yeah, I agree. I don't. I think the only time it becomes a rental if it's an ace. If it's your I don't know, Max Scherzer or someone like that, they go out and they do the deal straight away. They sell Roger Center. They give them CN Tao or whatever. It just everything's in. Take what you want, but I think that's a given. Otherwise, yeah, I think you're right. Has to be long term because that's the strategy now. The strategy isn't so much. Obviously, they want to make the playoffs this year, but I think I said last week. For me, everything seems like it's leading towards next year.
If the injuries continue, and it's conceivable probably next year is probably their target. But if these guys come back and Charlie can piece together a starting staff, whether it be with Nate Pearson and whoever, to follow the three lefties, and the guys can hit like how they can hit, then there's they should be 85 wins or more. And the only reason why I keep on saying 85 is I think that's all it's going to take to get to the playoffs. I honestly think that everybody's really, really close right now. The Chicago White Sox is probably one of the teams that you look at as a wild card team. Even though KC is going to be competitive, I can't see them staying at this pace that they're at right now. I could see them falling back towards the pack, probably following behind the pack a little bit. The same thing with Baltimore. I feel Boston's probably going to do the same thing. They're going to fall back a little bit.
And the Yankees can't be this crap, right?
Something's going to happen with the Yankees where it's going to be the point where this team continues to underachieve. And I think that's the elephant in the room right now. The Yankees have not performed well. So we've beaten the Yankees 4 out of the 6 games so far.
4-2, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What happens to that team when they kind of get themselves going in the right direction? If this team cannot get themselves going in the right direction, will this team...
But then we have to capitalize on that, right? Because everyone had the Yankees down as one of the favourites this year. So the fact that they're doing what they're doing now, we should really be trying to rack up some wins because they can't. I can't see them being this bad for the rest of the season.
I honestly had the Yankees. I had the Minnesota Twins, and I had the Los Angeles Angels as the division winners. And the 2 wildcard teams were going to be out of Tampa, Toronto, and Chicago and Houston. Those were the 4 teams that I predicted would go battling for the wild card. And I mean, Houston's off to a fast start, but now they're a game under 500. And again, it's very early in the season. We've talked about it's nothing to be alarmed with any of those fan bases. But, Detroit's where they're supposed to be, bottom. That's not putting anything against Detroit, but they're going to take a while before they become a contending team. But it's just one of those things where it's fun to talk about. Hey, what's going to happen? Why is this team not doing well? Why is that team doing well? The Yankees are faltering, and we all love it. But next month, the Yankees could win 22 out of 26 games, and they're going to be exactly where we expect them to be. And all of us will be saying, "Oh crap! Well, how did this happen? We're dead in the water in April." So it's. I mean, as a fan, and you and I are fans, and there's a lot of fans out there that do these shows. It's fun to talk about, but the realistic point is there's only 16 games. We can kind of speculate and talk, and it's good to talk about these things. It's good to discuss these things, but for me, I'm going to give every team 40 games to see where they're at.
Yeah, I think so. Question: who's the best team we've played so far?
We've played so far.
Yeah,
The Angels.
yeah.
I mean, Mike Trout and you have Shohei Ohtani. And when you run up against those two and they're hitting well and they're performing well, um, that's probably the best team up to this point. I think at the end of the month, I would probably say I would probably hedge my bets and say Tampa would be the best team that we're going to be running into.
Yeah. Well, we're about to find out, I guess. Obviously, Boston up. So 2 games against Boston starting tomorrow, and then we play a 3-game series against Tampa Bay. You said that you'd be happy to see us take 3 out of the 5. I don't want to be negative. I was going to say 2 out of 5, but because there's been so much negativity, mainly from Sheldon, it was him. It wasn't me. But I think because I don't know. I still think that we have a chance of winning both games against Boston, and then if we can take 1 from Tampa Bay, that's your 3 out of 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could be right, but the bullpen day on Wednesday is kind of concerning because we don't know what they're going to have for that bullpen day. Is it going to be who are they going to use?
Tanner Rourke and Dolis just pitching back to back.
Oh God! With Tanner Rourke, if they are thinking of a bullpen day, in all honesty, I would probably go with Anthony Kay to start it. Though there's part of me that also says, give Tanner Rourke an opportunity to go through.
You're going to make me fall off my chair again, aren't you, Sheldon? Here we go.
I would look at Tanner Rourke and say, hey, you can give me 3 innings and you can empty your tank in 3 innings for everything you got. Don't worry about innings 4, 5, and 6. Just give me 3 innings. Anthony Kay is going to follow you. See what happens. You've got $12 million invested in him. You got to figure out what you want to do with him because in the bullpen he's been performing decently. Could that be a situation where he looks a little bit better? Let's try him out as a starter again. If he fails again, take your chances.
Yeah, that's the project over, isn't it? I think if he does somehow miraculously start again, and it goes terribly wrong, yeah, and the Jays fans are going to blame you because you're the one that suggested it.
Pretty much. I mean, I am to a point and too much of an eternal optimist. I think there's still something left in Tanner Rourke and these guys who are struggling. But even there's a part of me that also sees writing on the wall that maybe Tanner Rourke cannot be a starter. And
I'm going to state for the record, I do not agree with Sheldon on this at all. I wouldn't have Tanner Rourke anywhere near the field of play at all. I would have him in the clubhouse making the sandwiches for the flight home afterwards or something. Like I can't. I'm done. I'm done with him.
I mean, if you come out of the bullpen and pitched well overall, then you do have something to work with. Now, if it's something psychological, he starts at the beginning and gets shelled, and that's the end of it. Or is it something that where he's comfortable coming out of the bullpen? You gotta have to find out what he is. You only have him for this year anyway. You could cut bait and just DFA him. You could do that as well if the Jays want to do that. But there's still a glimmer of hope I have for him that there's something left in that tank of his.
Do you know what I think he's good at? Do you want to hear what I think he's good at? I think he's good at going to the bank and cashing checks. That's about it. I can't get the energy. I said this to you before. Like I'm done with him. I don't want to hear his name. I don't want to see him on the field. I just think that he's a liability that we just can't afford at the moment with all of the injuries. would I be like, Tanner, you just sit there and you collect up the baseballs and you make sure everyone's got their kit at the end of the game. Don't ask me if you're playing ever. Like until we are winning 15-0, then I don't want to see him on the field.
But you have to use them because you have no pitchers.
Oh man. Oh dear.
You're going to have to use them at some point. Yeah. I mean, within this series, within the Boston series, I don't know if you're, in all honesty, if you don't see him in the bullpen game, you're not seeing him in the Boston series at all. The Tampa series, I think you will see him at some point.
But as I say, but then he's a possibility to start against Tampa Bay, right? You better hope we win both the games in Boston. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, the fans are adamant that they don't want to ever see Tanner Roark again. But at the same time, you know, with the pitching staff being the way it is, you're going to have to figure something out. And if that means saving your bullpen and taking a beating one day and putting Tanner Roark and let him get 5 innings and give up 7 runs to save your bullpen, that's something you want to do. Again, it's early in the season, very early in the season. Do I see Tanner Roark on this team at the end of the season? No, unless he turns it around.
I was about to say, unless there's a miracle where all of a sudden he finds his rhythm and his zone again. I just don't. I don't see it.
Well, I think you may see, and again, I'm an eternal optimist. I try and grab some type of positive out of something. Again, if he doesn't turn it around, I don't see him at the end. I honestly don't see him by the All-Star break. I think they'll cut bait with him. His struggles continue. But if he's pitching well at the bullpen, or if he gives you a spot start where it's decent, becomes a bit of a useful arm. You know, he's not going to be a guy he's not a number 2, number 3 starter. I think he's more at this stage of his career. He's a number 5 spot starter, and I probably fit in that way. And that way you can save a few arms too. Like, you know, you don't have to throw Trent Thornton in the 5th inning. You can throw Roark out in the 5th inning for 2 or 3, and then you have someone like Thornton or whoever behind. But you know, it's one of those things where if everyone was healthy, I don't think Tanner Roark would be on the team, to be honest.
No, it's funny actually. I was just thinking, like, obviously the Julian Merriweather thing is really unlucky because from what we saw, we were singing his praises. This guy was throwing pure fire, and he looked unhittable. He obviously would have been in the bullpen, and you could be thinking to yourself, where does Tanner Roark fit in here now? But it doesn't look. I don't think we're going to see Merriweather back for a long time, from what I can tell.
Yeah, there's a concern with his arm, and he's had injuries before, so there's been there's talking some concerns with what's going on with him right now. It may not be there. I think it's the oblique, not necessarily the arm, which is a good thing in a, you know, kind of like a silver lining in a dark cloud type of thing, where it's not the arm, it's the oblique. I just hope it's not too long. Jordan Romano is supposed to be coming back soon. I think, like I said, if you had everybody back, if everybody was pitching well, if Pearson was a spot starter or a, you know, somewhere in there, and if Hatch was healthy, and if Tanner Roark had pitched as poorly as he did, I think you probably would have seen Tanner Roark DFA by now. I think right now the Jays, as much as the fans don't want to admit to it,
he's a body.
We need Tanner Roark.
Yeah. Oh
God. Oh man, I'm gonna have to edit that out. I can't have that on this podcast. We need Tanner Roark.
I think we need someone to take some innings, and he might be the guy to do it.
That's like saying I love Odor, but yeah, okay. Like,
just some things I never said.
Yeah. But the funny thing is when he was signed, um, a lot of people were kind of like, okay, we got an innings eater. We got someone who could kind of help out in the starting rotation. And last year just didn't look like that. And I think part of it was the the whole stop of COVID and everything, and then starting to start up again.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with conditioning. We've seen it especially with Vladdy. Vladdy looked good last March and April, and then he gained so much weight when August came around. So, um, it's one of those things where we could be talking about Tanner Rourke starting, but maybe he prefers being in the bullpen. Maybe he feels much more comfortable there. So it's a moot point for him to be a starter. Um, but it's one of those things where, uh, I said I'm an optimist. I think there's still something left in that tank. I just don't know how much of it is left.
Yeah.
He may have one great start and then just blow up. But there's something there. There's something left in there. I just don't know. And right now, with today's the pitching staff, it's one of those things where his arm is available. Use him.
Well, look, let's wrap things. Let's attempt to wrap things up. I say attempt to wrap things up. We did that last week and ended up speaking for another hour afterwards. So, as far as I'm concerned, the way I see it at the moment is that it's way too early to panic. We have way too many injuries to even start contemplating on how bad we've performed in certain games, because we don't have a healthy bullpen. We have literally no starting rotation, and we're missing key elements from the starting lineup. Yeah, I think that we can agree on we can agree on all of them things. So I think for me it's going to be an interesting week. We should get Teoscar back. We possibly could get Springer. Everyone's saying can't wait to see him back. Well, we haven't seen him, not in a competitive game anyway. So Teoscar comes back. Springer makes his debut. Kavin recovers. That's 3 out of 9 hitters. That's a third of the team that we're waiting to come back. Yeah. So I think that's the positives. On the pitching front, we should see Romano back at some point this week. We could possibly see Pearson back at some point this week. And according to you, Tanner Rourke's going to play at some point. So there's three positives on the pitching front as well. 2.5. But I think if we're to look at it on a positive thing, take the Tanner Rourke thing out of it, I think that this is it's gonna be an interesting week, right? If all these players do come back, that's like 5, maybe 6 players coming back. That's a big number.
It's a huge number, and the fact that these the walking wounded are coming back at some point before the end of the month. It's definitely, if they don't come back next week, for the end of the month. I think the month of May is going to kind of tell us what these Jays could do when they're at full strength. And it's going to give Charlie an opportunity to kind of mix and match, ride the hot hand. If Rowdy's going well and Teoscar is going well, then I don't think you'll see Randall Grichuk in the lineup as often as we've seen him in April. If George Spring comes back and he hits the ground running.
Is it going to be DH to start off with, do you reckon?
For Springer?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you see him as a DH for the first few weeks, playing a little bit of the outfield and then maybe DH in the next game. Or if there's a day game after a night game, I think you'll see him at DH. But May is going to be an interesting month. That will give us about 40 games into the season,
and we have a lot of off days between now and the beginning of May as well, right? From what I could see this
Yeah,
week.
we have like 4 off days. Yeah, we have 2 this week, and we have 2 next.
Monday, Thursday again next week. Yeah, so that can only help us because it just means that it's giving everyone extra time to rest and recover.
Yeah, I mean that's all needed. I mean the Jays have been hit pretty hard with the health issues and the COVID issues, and next month, we'll see where they're at. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have a winning record at the end of May, where they're like 30-22 or something, or something of that nature. And that would be almost more than 40 games in. That might be about a third of the season.
Yeah.
We'll have a better idea of what this team is at, where they are offensively, defensively, pitching wise. It's going to be an exciting May for all of us.
Let's hope so. Sheldon, as always, you've been wicked today. Thank you very much for joining me. Guys, don't forget to make sure you follow Sheldon over on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle again?
There's a few. The last time I was here, I think there was only one. So there's a few now. Sheldon Boosplay at Instagram. There's also a show that I do called the 40/40 Club, where it's literally old guys talking, and we're just talking about baseball in general. And then I have my own one called Into the Gaps, which will be starting up soon. So those are the three that you'll find me on. You'll also find me on Blue Jay Center from time to time, talking about the highlights of the game with a group of young, energetic men and women who love the sport, and they have a different opinion and different look at times on the game and how things are going. But those are where you can find me.
Sheldon, amazing. Once again, thanks for joining me. I'm sure we will catch up in the week. Guys, don't forget as well to make sure you follow the socials. Hit me up on YouTube, like, subscribe, ding that bell. Over on the podcast channels, make sure you hit me up on Spotify, Apple Music, Google, all of the places you consume your podcasts. And don't forget as well on the socials, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everywhere else where you can find me. And I will catch you very soon for another edition of Jay's Talk with Jay. Man, it's sweating in here.